All right. Can everybody hear me? Excellent. Well, it appears to be that time for the regularly scheduled January 3rd, 2022. It'll take me a while to get that right. Town of Abingdon Council meeting. I'd like to welcome everybody to the chambers. It's nice to see some smiling faces out in the crowd tonight, and some masked up smiling faces. I can tell you're all smiling. Thanks for joining us on this wonderful, cold, balmy sort of night after our first proper snow of the year. And Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Here.
Ms. Pillion?
Here.
Ms. Quetch?
Here.
Mayor Webb?
Here.
And let the record reflect Mr. Anderson is absent.
That brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance, which I have the honor of leading tonight. If you please stand with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And tonight we have the pleasure of having Pastor Paul C. with us from Abingdon United Methodist Church. If you'll please come up.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. My name is Paul C. I serve as the pastor of Abingdon United Methodist Church and Charles Wesley United Methodist Church, both on Main Street here in Abingdon. My wife and daughter and I moved back to the area in July and are glad to call Abingdon home. Will you join me in a time of prayer? Almighty God, you are faithful and you are good. From generation to generation, you have revealed yourself to be a Lord of mercy, justice, forgiveness, and kindness. You created everything that is and called it good. When your human family fell into sin and turned away from you, your love remained steadfast. You continue to send prophets to speak the truth, to call your people back. In the fullness of time, you came to us in Jesus of Nazareth, the Word made flesh, to show us how to live and how to love. Through his death and resurrection and the outpouring of your Holy Spirit, you offer new life and life eternal to all who will receive it. We thank you and we praise you for your wondrous faithfulness to your creation. I thank you for each member of the town council, for all who serve and work in Abingdon, for those who put themselves forward to serve the community. I pray blessings on each of them, their families, and those whom they love. And we lift up tonight our friend James Scabo Anderson, who cannot be with us, and we pray for health and healing and peace for him and for his family. I ask that you would guide the members of the council, give them wisdom to discern your will, be in their speaking and their listening tonight, be with all those who will do the work tonight. May it be done with diligence and faithfulness and even joy. We pray that everything that we do here tonight can be for the good of the community and for your glory. And we remember tonight also the most vulnerable members of our community. And on this cold night, we remember those for whom the weather is not just a topic of conversation, but a matter sometimes of life and death. And so we pray that you would be with them especially now. We offer you this prayer in the name of Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for that lovely prayer. And that brings us to the approval of the agenda. Council, if there are no changes to be made, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as it is.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Owens. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Pillion. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion?
Aye.
Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. That brings us to public comments. When you approach the council, when your name is called, we request that anyone addressing the council state your first and last name and provide a complete mailing address. And again, we do abide by the 3 minutes per speaker rule. So first up, we have Mr. Michael Henningsen. I hope I said that right. I apologize if I did.
You did. Very good.
That's good. I'm lucky. Welcome.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I am Michael A. Henningsen. I live at 17977 Overlook Drive, Abingdon, Virginia. I'm executive director of a local nonprofit, Core Values Music Heritage. And our goal is to bring history to life, to, as the seal says, honor the past, to bring hope for the future. And part of what we do is provide guided history tours based on the stories of people who lived and affected this area. And so for just a minute, I'd like to introduce you to a gentleman who had a tremendous impact not only on Southwest Virginia, but on America in general. I'd like to introduce you just for a minute to one Alexis De Tocqueville. How many of you have ever met Alexis De Tocqueville before? All right, I didn't suspect you had. See, Alexis de Tocqueville was a French economist and a French diplomat who came to America in 1831 after the French Revolution had basically been a disaster. And he wanted to spend 2 years to examine what about this experiment in democracy called America. And he, after 2 years of touring up and down and coming into Southwest Virginia and up and down Virginia and in most of the states, the early states then, and he literally wrote the book on democracy in America. It's a 2-volume set, it's several hundred pages, and it's a lot of reading, but it is a synopsis, or not a synopsis, it is his impressions of this entity, this experiment that we call democracy. And if I can summarize that in just a few phrases, he described the social environment of democracy as a 3-legged stool. That there are 3 forces in society. There is the private sector. The private sector is business. The job of business is to create wealth. That's their job. The second leg of this 3-legged stool, and if you've ever sat on a 3-legged stool, it's pretty stable. It's about the only stable thing. And if you remove any one of the legs, it's no longer stable. The second leg of this 3-legged stool is the public sector, or government. That there is a defined set of things that a government can do, and there are a defined set of things that the government can't do. The government can't create wealth. The government cannot create wealth. The government has some distinct jobs to do. Guard our liberties. Create a safe environment for us. Protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The government has some very limited things, and that is by design. And the third leg is referred to as the independent sector, or the third force, and it is the we the people. The we the people who create the nonprofit organizations. It is in the nonprofit organizations that the voice of we the people is heard, that the passions are explained, the passions are brought to life in the nonprofit sector. You see, the independent sector can't do what government can do, and the government can't do what the nonprofit sector can
I
do.
apologize, I'm gonna have to ask you to wrap it up.
Not a problem, because I would like to. I can't in 3 minutes express the passion that I have for nonprofit organizations, but I can ask that I would have an opportunity to spend longer with this council to talk more about the fundamentals of Alexis de Tocqueville and the 3-legged stool, what government can and what government cannot do and should not do. The second challenge, I'd like to have another time.
Sure.
The second challenge is to get you to read about Alexis de Tocqueville. If you're in government or you're thinking or doing anything with nonprofits, you need to understand who Alexis de Tocqueville is. And the third and final thing, my final closing remarks, if I may, I would have one challenge. And it is a challenge from one of the most dynamic nonprofit organizations in the world today, from the Rotary International. And it is their challenge. The Rotary 4-way test is of the things that we think, say, or do. And this involves all of our relationships with the nonprofits, with everything, with the business section, of the things we think, say, or do.
Okay.
Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned?
We're gonna have to ask you to stop, I'm sorry.
Will
I
it,
apologize.
will it build goodwill and better fellowship? Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Get back with us. We'll have you again.
Thank you.
Sure. And next up is Mr. Emmett Yeary.
Emmett Yeary, 171 East Main Street, Abingdon, Virginia. These remarks will be regarding the proposed Veterans Advisory Board. Why? Why now? Well, you know why. It has nothing to do with your purported establishing a board to assist in programs and events to honor and recognize area veterans. And in fact, it is just the opposite. I submit instead it is the second part of an intentionally developed plan and scheme by the town manager and others to undermine the Veterans Memorial Park Foundation, which has developed the Veterans Memorial Park and held events at the park and other places throughout the town on Memorial and Veterans Day and other occasions for 18 years. The first part of this scheme was the town creating a nonprofit organization that will compete with fundraising by the Park Foundation as well as other nonprofit organizations in this town and will realistically be controlled by the town manager administration. This is the latest in a long list of the present administration's tearing away at the fabric, traditions, and integrity of this town. In the last 2 years since the present town manager came to town, there's been a systemic and intentional dismantling and discontinuing town support for local civic organizations and events. The banner program over Cumming Street was discontinued after the banner poles were abruptly ordered to be removed by the town manager without any warning or notice to the public or the town council action. Over the course of at least 16 years, banners have been displayed announcing local civic events by various organizations. An outright lie to the public was used as a justification for this abrupt action, when in fact the real reason was to limit freedom of speech and expression. In the last 2 years, we have seen unprecedented numbers of resignations of valuable and highly respected town employees. We are now seeing the award-winning town sewer department dismantled and turned over to a private, for-profit corporation, resulting in the loss of jobs and retirement benefits of hardworking and dedicated town employees. We have witnessed at a Memorial Day event interrupted by a psychotic-like outburst of screaming ranting that would result in most people being placed on an FBI watch list. This came about when the Master of Ceremonies was complimenting the Director of Parks and Recreation and questioning why he was no longer being allowed to attend park board meetings. This is not just about the park or veterans. This is about everything our servicemen and women have fought and died for. Freedom of speech, freedom of association. It is about the integrity and honesty of our government and resistance to tyrannical abuse of power and bigotry. We could say to the proponent of these schemes, have you no shame? But we need not ask, since we know the answer is no. But the real shame is on all of you who allow this to continue and are taking the love out of this town. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all and this country and this town.
All right. That brings us to the approval of the minutes. Note we didn't have a mid-monthly work session, so we just had the December the 6th meeting. Therefore, if those are okay, council, I would entertain a motion to adopt those minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Mr. Owens. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Pillion. Any discussion, council?
Nope.
Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. And we did have a special proclamation scheduled for tonight, but unfortunately because of the weather, we aren't going to get the chance to recognize the Abingdon High School football team. We have, I think, postponed that till the next scheduled council meeting, so we'll look forward to seeing them in February. And I think that was a wise call considering the weather and those young drivers want to be safe. We don't have any public hearings scheduled tonight. We do have a resolution. That's a resolution supporting the application for Walkabout mini grant. Myanna Rice. Welcome.
Good evening. Mayanna Rice, Director of Community Development. I'll be very brief. We had a request for support from the Town Council for a Safe Routes to School mini grant. And we have placed a resolution in front of you tonight to request your support for that.
Excellent.
All right.
That was short and sweet, for
Yeah.
sure.
If there's any questions, by all means, let me know.
I was gonna say, council, do we have any questions for Mayanna?
No, I think it's a good idea.
I agree. I think we all firmly believe that's a good idea.
Perfect.
So with that being said, I would entertain a motion to adopt that resolution.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Payne, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Owens. Any discussion, council?
Mayor, you may want to give just a little bit more description of what the resolution
Okay,
is.
sure. You want, should we read it, Cam, or?
Well, I don't think you're required to, but it might be.
Okay.
how long-
So the gist of the resolution is we had a speaker come to the last meeting, and they were concerned and, I guess, interested in having an avenue for children to ride bikes and walk to school. And we realized that we needed to take a more formal action to be able to adopt some sort of an ordinance to do so. Is that basically the gist of it? Is that fair enough? Did I miss anything, Mayanna, or?
I was trying to be brief and quick, but, all right, so I'll just read this sentence into it. It's the Town of Abingdon supports the Walkabout mini grant, which, if granted, will provide funds to study the safety for students to bike and walk to E.B. Stanley, Abingdon High School, and the Neff Center. And the idea here for the public is that this is an outside organization who is requesting support. So the town is not providing the funds. If they do have this grant approved and awarded, it will actually come from VDOT.
Okay.
And so really the town is supporting it through this resolution. And then the second piece of this equation is to have staff available to participate the day that the walkabout occurs, if they are granted this. So,
Much
anything
more
else?
eloquent than I
Thank you,
stated.
thank you for indulging my thoroughness.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. Anytime.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Again, council, any questions or concerns? Well, I think it's a great idea. Anytime we can promote health and well-being of the children and trying to get them out and be active, I think it's great. So,
That's great.
again, I would entertain a motion to adopt this resolution.
I'll make that motion.
I think they already did.
Did
that.
we already do that? So it's Mr. Owens, second by Amanda.
Okay,
Ms. Pillion? What's
Ms.
that?
Ms. Pillion.
Ms. Pillion,
Yeah,
I
and then
apologize.
Mr. Owens second.
Okay. Ms. Pillion made a motion, Mr. Owens seconded that.
That's great.
Now, any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion. Aye. Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Wood.
Aye. Thanks, Cam, for messing that one up, man.
Yes, sir. Anytime.
We're paid the
Prove
big
my
bucks.
existence for
That's
today.
it. All right. We don't have any first reading of ordinances. We do have a second reading of an ordinance. It's the ordinance regarding proposed Veteran Advisory Board. Mr. Morani.
Yes, this was discussed at the last meeting. It was council's desire to move it to second reading. Any questions, feel free to ask, but it's in similar format as we did for the Abingdon Arts Commission as far as structure and terms and so forth, so.
Okay. Council, any questions for Mr. Morani? I know we've seen this a couple of times already.
No new questions from me.
No new questions? No new questions?
No new
Okay.
questions.
Hearing none, council, I would entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance for the proposed Veterans Advisory Board.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Quetch. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. Owens. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens.
Aye.
Ms. Pillion. Aye. Ms. Quetch.
Aye.
And Mayor Wood.
Aye. We don't have any consideration of bids tonight. No new business that I know of. Am I missing anything, Jimmy, Kim? Any old business?
He's already justified his existence, so I don't think he's gonna bring anything else up.
Burn me on that one, Kim. Burn me on that. All right. So that brings us to miscellaneous business and communications from the town manager, which tonight we are fortunate to have Brown and Edwards join us for the presentation of the 2020-2021 financial audit for the town of Abingdon. Mr. Jordan Owens.
Good evening. Thank you all for the opportunity to come and present the town's audited financial statement report as of June 30, 2021. Does everybody have a copy of the deliverables?
I think we do.
Okay. I think we won't go over these two documents in detail. The required communication with those charged with governance is a summary of the audit matters that we're really going to talk about in more detail with the audited financial report. And then the other report is the comments on internal control and other suggestions. And that's just something that is offered to management as like a value-added service, and you all can kind of read through those. First, I want to thank Steve Trotman, the Director of Finance, and his accounting department for all their help that they provided to us, as well as Kim and Tammy in the back. They all provided quick responses to the requests that we had, and everything went pretty smoothly from that perspective. So with the audited financial report, the first page I want to go to is just page 6. And this is the meat and potatoes. This is what you all hired us for. This is the opinion on the financial statements. It is a clean, unmodified opinion. So that's as good as it gets in terms of an opinion on an audit report. There is another matter in this report that's a little bit different than your typical audit report, and that's the emphasis of matter, which is that second paragraph on page 6. And it says, as discussed in note 18 to the financial statements, the financial statements of the general fund have been restated to correct a previous misstatement. Our opinion is not modified with respect to this matter. One item I wanted to bring up was this was not found during the audit. This was actually found and corrected by management during the year. We're just presenting it in the report as an emphasis of matter, just so users of the financial statements can pay particular attention to that. And you can find the detail of that actually on page 54, and that is note 18. And effectively what happened is with the Meadows project, there were some sewer infrastructure assets that were put into place, and they were paid for by the general operating fund. So this adjustment is just moving those expenditures and those capital assets over onto the sewer fund. So that's really what that adjustment is concerning. So the next item I wanted to go over a little bit is on page 66. This is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards. This is a new schedule for the town's financial statements for fiscal year 21. This wasn't in fiscal year 20's financial statements. It was in fiscal year 19. The reason why this has kind of came and went is just dependent on the amount of federal awards that the town is expending. With a lot of the ARPA money that you all have received, this is going to be present in probably the next couple financial statement audits, and this details out the grants that you've received, who it's coming from, the amount of money that was spent, and it just, the main reason why it got triggered this year was for the coronavirus relief funds, which you can see is the 21,019. That was $1,032,000 worth of federal expenditures. And the final item I wanted to bring to your attention begins on page 90. And this is another summary of the audit. This is called the Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. This is normally in the audit as a schedule of findings and responses. So the title changes a little bit because of that single audit, that federal award schedule that we just talked about. So this goes over some of the high-level items. The auditor's report expresses an unmodified opinion on the financial statements of the town of Abingdon, Virginia. We did note that there was one significant deficiency that we found during the audit, and we'll go over that in just a second. During the federal grant compliance audit for the coronavirus relief funds, we didn't notice any instances of non-compliance. And the auditor's report on compliance for the major federal program expressed an unmodified opinion. The town of Abingdon was not determined to be a low-risk auditee. And then we get into the findings of the financial statement audit. This is that significant deficiency that I brought up earlier. And effectively what this was with the Meadows project ongoing at year end, there was a big fields project that had a large construction invoice attached to it. And for that particular invoice, there is retainage payable that is supposed to be booked along with that contractor's invoices, those amounts that are held due back to the contractor. That didn't get picked up initially, so we recorded that. It was $130,000, and that's what this finding is really discussing. Going through the rest of the findings, there are some Commonwealth of Virginia findings on unclaimed property, budget appropriations, as well as the highway maintenance disbursements that we've kind of talked about in the past. And then we wrote one finding for the compliance related to uniform guidance procurement. with all the ARPA money flowing through, the uniform guidance states that you must have certain written procedures related to procurement for federal grants, and that's what this finding is really related to. And those are the high-level items that I kind of wanted to go over. If anybody has any questions, we'd be happy to answer those.
If I could clarify something, Jordan, on
Sure.
that retainage issue, so just so I can expand. So on that particular, as the invoices are coming in for the meadows, there's a portion of it that's paid to the contractor, and then there's a percentage of that amount, usually it's 5%, that's just accumulated as retainage that the town will owe at the end of that contract. It's still something that we budgeted for.
Withheld to make sure that the
Withheld, just to
job
make
is-
sure they complete the project. So what happened was invoice was getting paid, but we weren't putting it as an accounts payable,
That's
that
correct.
retainage. So it wasn't like all of a sudden we knew we weren't gonna have to pay 130. We knew we were gonna have to pay, it just wasn't properly accounted for
Yeah.
in that form as far as in the accounts payable form, so.
That adjustment increased AP and then the corresponding expenditure and then the
Yeah.
capital assets on the government-wide statements.
Yeah, it didn't change the overall cost of the project, it was just how it was accounted for,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Yeah, no, it wasn't a surprise from that standpoint. Any other questions?
Come on, Donna, I know you've got some questions.
I already asked.
She already spent.
We had a
Already
2-hour meeting
spent a
earlier.
2-hour meeting with them.
That's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You could be thoroughly comforted to know that Ms. Quitch was probably, if she hasn't already read this thing from front to back and asked any questions to the auditors that she needs to instead.
I appreciate y'all's time. If you need anything else, just feel free
Thank
to
you
let us
so
know.
much.
Thank you.
All right. That brings us to the Abingdon Police Department update. Welcome, Chief.
Mayor, members of council, glad to be back. It's been a few months since I've been able to present a report to you all. In fact, it's been since August. So I'm going to catch you up on the last 6 months, activities within the agency and around town of what we've been up to. I gave you all a packet. I think Ms. Kingsley distributed it to you, so I'm going to follow along with that report. Feel free to stop me with any questions, comments, anything you want to talk about, and we'll go through that. As always, I like to start out with my personnel, who we've picked up, who's new, who's left. In this situation, I want to start with talking about Officer Josh Brummett, who just got back from active duty deployment. He's in the Virginia National Guard. We are proud of his service with the military, but we're also thankful he's returned safe and ready to work. He's been deployed since 2020, so it's been a while that he's been gone. But he's back now. He brings with him 16 years of experience. He has a ton of knowledge, especially in DUI and DUI enforcement. So we're proud to have him back, thankful to have him back, and he's off to the races already. We also went through an extensive hiring process, and I don't know if I talked to you all about what our hiring process is. I wanted to lay that out a little bit. We don't just take anybody. We're very selective in who we take. Our agency success depends on the people that we have working within it. So we're very selective. We tend to hire as a group, so we make it a group effort. And it starts with a basic application, and then we bring them in for a written examination. Then we pull them out and do a preliminary interview, followed by a physical agility test, which is our obstacle course. And it's the same obstacle course they have to pass in the academy to make it in the first day. We do a 1.5 mile timed run. They have to do that within 18 minutes. We then pull in a panel interview, and the panel is composed of different folks, 5 different people within our agency, from sworn staff to civilian staff. Then we do a very extensive background. If they make it through all that, they get an interview with me, followed by a psychological exam, a drug screen, and a physical exam. We had a pretty good turnout. We had 38 applicants that put in, which was pretty good. Of those 38, we ended up choosing 3, and we have a 4th that's under a background investigation now. Those 3 came from when Sergeant Finney retired, and we had Sergeant Greer leave for a non-law enforcement job. And of course, we had one that left due to injury, and then one that got recruited by the sheriff's office. But one officer we hired is Officer Josh Barlow. He began right before Christmas on December 20th. We brought him aboard. Officer Barlow's from Bristol, Virginia, went to Virginia High School. Then he went to Virginia Highlands Community College and received his associate's degree, but he comes from a line of law enforcement in his family. His grandfather was an officer. His father is a current Bristol, Virginia officer. His twin brother is a current Bristol, Virginia officer. So he knows what he's getting into. He's excited about it, and which is good because he starts the academy on Monday. So we're proud to have him on board. I want to do a little quick follow-up. Now, the next update, I'll tell you about the other two that we hired on today, and then if we end up hiring the fourth, I'll introduce that. But I also wanted to update you on Officer Carter Nichols. Now, we hired those a little while back. They finished their academy back in November. Officer Carter actually got the academic award while I was there, as well as the marksmanship award. So he did extremely good. He was elected as a class president, gave a beautiful class speech at the end of the academy. I was very proud of him, and I was very proud of Officer Nichols as well. They're both within their field training right now, and they're finishing that up. Officer Carter should be completed here very soon, as well as Officer Nichols. So they'll be doing good. They also passed their state certification exam pretty easily, and they should be completed by the end of the month, and we'll have 2 new officers on the road. We also hired Carrie Price as the administrative coordinator. The mayor's laughing. We found Carrie at KVAT.
No, she found us. We didn't find her.
She found us. Yeah, she found us. She's from Bristol, Virginia as well, and attended Virginia High School, and she has a bachelor's degree in psychology. She's had years of administrative management experience, and we are very fortunate to have her on board. She currently resides in town with her son Caleb, so it's been fantastic to have her on board as well. Some special events. Finally, we're starting to get back into these now that some restrictions have been were lifted for the COVID. It seems to be going in a different trend now, but we brought Officer Richardson back in her RAD classes, which were very successful. We were able to do 1 class, and then the pandemic hit, and we had to cancel everything. So now we're bringing it back. We had 3 classes over 3 months. Each class has 3 different sessions within it. We started with abuse alternatives. Then we opened it up to employees with probation and parole. And then we opened it up to the general public, and all the classes were filled. She can't have very many because it's a one-on-one kind of instructions, but every class was filled, and we look to be having these continuously. Huge thanks to the Coombs Center for helping us provide some space as well. Halloween was a great time for us. We participated in 3 trunk or treats, handed out a bunch of candy, but it was fun to spend time with the kids. We kind of split it up for different officers to do the different trunk or treats. I got the Abingdon Elementary one, so that was a good time with the little ones. But Sheriff's Office had one at the fairgrounds that was fantastic as well. So we had set up the car 3 different ways. Then we had the Christmas parade. So I worked with the Kiwanis Club. Amanda Bailey with the Kiwanis Club was great to work with. We tried to make it a huge success. It did bring out a good-sized crowd. I think a lot of you all are already aware of that. But we put together a great parade. It took almost all of our officers. It took a lot of town staff. We had people from Public Works, from Parks and Rec. We're all out there, coordination with Mr. Morani as far as making all the resources available to have it as safe as possible during this time. And I think the parade went off really well. I enjoyed working it because, of course, you get to see it when you work it as well. So it was a good parade, but huge thanks to State Police, the Sheriff's Office, and all the town staff who helped us out, and especially the Kiwanis for working with us so closely. I think I brought Amanda in several different times to go over all the minor details. Kind of like Cam with the thoroughness with my parades. Our school resource officers, they were glad to get back into schools. We had them back in the schools on day 1. During the summer, they did a little bit of code enforcement, but they were excited to get back in school. I think they were more excited than the kids to be back in their roles as school resource. It takes a special officer that loves doing that, loves being with the kids, and that's what they like to do. So they're glad to be back in person in the schools. Our CTAC mental health, our CTAC was our Crisis Intervention Team Assessment Center. We've had this program for about a year now, and we've changed it up a little bit with the new MOUs. So what we did was we're expanding the program. So we went from one officer each day for a 12 to 13-hour shift. Now we're going to do a full 24-hour coverage. This helps all the consumers. So now if you get a consumer in the middle of the night, we'll have coverage from a specially trained officer or deputy. But in doing so, we split it up amongst all the stakeholders involved, which are the Washington County Sheriff's Office, us, and the City of Bristol. So the Washington County Sheriff's Office is going to contribute 2 deputies to the program now. We're going to go from 2 officers just to 1 officer, and the Bristol, Virginia Sheriff's Office is going to contribute a deputy for that other spot. So that way we're all involved with the program, and we also do backfill, so it's a little less on us to backfill 2 positions. We only have to backfill 1 if they're out for training or sick or vacation, et cetera. So we're kind of bringing it all together to make a more expansive program so that we can serve all the consumers. Our delayed admissions, this was an issue I probably brought up to you before. I know Cam Bell is probably tired of hearing me talk about delayed admission TDOs. But this has calmed down a little bit. This is where we would take somebody on temporary detention order to transport to a mental health facility. We ran into issues that the mental health facilities were full and there was nowhere to take them. So it was requiring an officer to sit with them for hours and hours. You know, we're spending 50+ hours sitting with a mental health patient. That has seemed to have gotten a little bit better, knock on wood, for now, so that now when they're issued, we can immediately transport, which is what it's designed to do, what the law is designed to do. CIT training, this is a crisis intervention training. This training has been very good. The officers that I've sent to this training or have already received this training have been spectacular out in the field, especially when they're dealing with those in a mental health crisis. So we had an opportunity to send Officer Stumbo through this 40-hour course. Now this is a 40-hour course, which is pretty extensive, meaning I'd take somebody to send for 40 hours, so we can't send everybody, but eventually I'm going to try to send more and more as much as I can. We have another one going next week. We also did some other training. Officer Barker, who's been with us for a few years now, he received his DCJS instructor certification, so he's going to start teaching. He's also gone to a specialty school in defensive tactics. So he's going to be teaching defensive tactics to us and other officers. Investigator Wilmoth completed a forensic interview peer review, and then Lieutenant E's completed an autism awareness for command staff. We spent quite a bit of time teaching, you know, with academies back in full session. We had several officers teach everything from speed measurement to vehicle stops. So let's go over some stats for the year. I went ahead and put together the full year stats so you get the big picture of things. This year we had, now I cut the date off on December 27th so I could compile it. So there'll be a few more reports that came in since then and January 1. But until then we had about 3,578 total incident reports. This is when the officer went out for all the calls and took a report. Of those, 502 were criminal, 289 were crash. We had 1,143 traffic stops and 729 traffic summonses, 269 arrests, and our CTAC was used 222 different times throughout the year. As you can see, that program has been successful. And then I broke down the incident reports for a year from 2016 to 2021. If you'll notice, 2020 and 2021 has a significant decrease in incident reports. I made a few changes internally to try to make our reporting a little bit more efficient, a little less redundant. So that took away some of those additional crash reports. Instead of doing an incident and crash report, we just do the crash report now. So that's why you see that huge decline during those 2 years. I'm just trying to make things a little bit more efficient. The next are our Group A and B offenses compared throughout the years, and you'll see a decline in those as well. So we went 2016 to 706, in 2021, we're at 502 now. So our crime rate has decreased through the years. And then I took out the top 10 Group A offenses. This is our more serious. I went ahead and defined what a Group A and Group B offense was, so our more serious crimes are Group A's. And you'll see our property crimes are our top 10 leading. So all of the larceny, which is our thefts, and then our damage, destruction of property, vandalism, are our two major Group A offenses that we had throughout 2021. And then, of course, my crash data, because I'm always big into crash data. And you can see in 2020, our crashes per year were at an all-time low. Well, that was generally the pandemic. So the best way to help your crashes is by having less people on the road. Now that we're getting back in full swing, you can tell that our crash data has increased back up to 289. And then we had several since then, so that's going to be in the 290-ish by the end of the year. So that's basically all I got. What kind of questions do you have?
I got a couple questions.
Sure.
As usual. On your CETA utilizations, in March, that's your highest month of 30.
Hmm?
Is there a reason for that month to be higher than others? I mean, is there something statistical going on there that?
I don't know if it's statistical or if it's just the way that it happens. When somebody goes into a mental health crisis.
So we don't have back years to notice if that's a trend that March is going to be the month for mental health crisis?
We don't really have that data. So our data kind of starts when we took over the program, and that was July of 2020. So that would really have been my first March of data that I had on that.
And the other question I had is, obviously, the Group A and B offenses per year has gone down significantly since 2016, and what can you attribute to that? From more officers, less? I mean, I don't know.
So it's not more officers because we've ran less. I think it's just
They're more efficient.
We've worked really hard. I think you got a combination of officers that are out there working hard each and every day to try to prevent crimes as much as solve crimes. And I think it's a totality. It can be everything from the economy being different to the number of people in town. But, I mean, really, it's just we're out there each and every day. My folks are out there each and every day. And that's our goal, to try to keep decreasing that rate as much as we can.
And my last question is, in case of when I'm running from him, I know what he looks like. The one that got the marksmanship award was Officer Carter?
Correct,
That
yes.
photograph, which one is he, so I'll know what he looks like?
He's the one on the left.
Taller.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know.
He's running bullseye.
He actually previously worked at the regional jail, and he was a DCJS instructor for them and was a firearms instructor. But when he switched to the road, which is what we term it as, then he had to go back through the basic training. So he was an instructor that could teach the class, but had to re-attend the class.
Now, I know Lieutenant Eads is sort of an expert, right, in firearms, and so
Yes.
is there like a friendly competition between the two? Is there-
There's always a friendly
Okay.
competition, yes.
All right.
But thank you guys for doing a good job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for
We
your
appreciate
support,
you.
as always, and I'll fill you in on the next
How
update.
many officers are we up to right now?
We're at 26 right now.
26, and you want 28, 27?
Sure.
Well, the number fluctuates.
It does. We were at 27, but then when we lost the position, we turned the position over to the Bristol, Virginia Sheriff's Office for a CTAC. That brought us
Yeah.
back down to 26.
Okay.
Because we had two that were in CTAC, yeah, sworn.
Fantastic.
I've been amazed at how well they've been able to do with the amount of fluctuation, even during COVID, during the isolations and the quarantines and everything. And like I said, they're obviously, with this economy and the trend, in the workforce, there's going to be some people that have left, but we've had a lot of them. I think, they like working in the department, they like the environment, and they like working in Abingdon, and so we've really had a good core. And Chief's leadership has a lot to do with that. So.
And we appreciate you.
Well, thank
so
you.
much.
I will say for the chief, as he said to me, the temporary detention order and mental health issues are incredibly difficult for all parties, and it's the same problem throughout the Commonwealth, although we seem to be further away from some hospitals than other places are. But Chief Holbrook has complained to anybody who can be complained to vigorously, so you can, he's been a big advocate for the client, certainly, and for his own officers, so you guys should definitely be proud of him for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, Chief. It's a wonderful report. Thank you so much.
I do have a few things, Mayor.
Sure.
At the end, since it
Yeah,
didn't
go right
have
ahead.
anything specifically listed, just a couple updates. We do have a public information meeting regarding this Park Street project. The town just last week got approval from VDOT Central Office and will be soon receiving authorization to begin the right-of-way acquisition process. These would be temporary construction easements or permanent right-of-way. But we had set up an information meeting, and we did put that out publicly, but we also did send direct mail notifications to the property owners that would be affected. We're doing that, we decided to do that at the fire department, in the conference room, because it will be close to the residents there, or accessible for anybody else in the public. But it's going to be on Thursday. It's a public meeting, so anybody can come. It's going to be on Thursday, January 6th, from 5 to 7. So it's not going to be it's not going to start at 5, and you have to be there at 5. It'll just be from 5 to 7. We'll have town staff there, as well as the consulting engineers. So if there's any questions regarding the project, residents and business owners or property owners can ask questions about that. Another item, Arthur Campbell Room, since we're going back down to the Arthur Campbell Room to have our work sessions, we have determined, I've had discussions with staff on the future use of that room. And since we've pretty much agreed to continue to hold planning commission meetings and historic preservation review board meetings here for various reasons, because of the setup, the room, and the audio video capabilities, we decided to make the conference room a little bit roomier by removing the dais. And so facilities maintenance staff has been working on that. We'll still be able to meet there for the next work session, and the platform will be gone, and so it'll still be sort of under renovation still, but it'll give us a little bit more room. So if we have guests that come, and if we have meetings like we had a couple months ago, public information meetings, it'll provide us a little bit more room if we have a conference table in there as well. So just open it up a little bit more. And then final reminder, Kim has provided everybody with the statements of economic interest, and those are due by February 1st to her, so she can send them off. And that's it. If anybody has any questions for me.
Anybody have questions for Jimmy?
Oh, yeah, I can bring that. Yeah, Tanya started moving, and Tanya and Tennille started moving over to the Fields Penthouse. It's not open to the public yet. Renovations are substantially complete. There's some wallpaper work that needs to be done, and some things on the exterior that need to be cleaned up. But the inside looks great. We do plan on having some sort of an open house for that, but staff has started to move in over there, and we'll be slow to get some things moved over there, because we can't do it all in 1 week. But they actually accomplished a lot last week. I was amazed as to how much the public works staff helped in moving items from other facilities over into there. But I think we're going to have some IT work done later this week, and in March is when we plan to open the building up to the public. So it's just around the corner. So.
Fantastic. Any questions for Jimmy otherwise? Thanks for the update. That brings us to council member reports. Council, does anybody have a report they'd like to make? Anything they'd like to share with the general public?
I'd like to just give a shout out to the finance department, Steve and Tammy, on the wonderful job with the audit. And I know that involves a lot of work, and we appreciate all you do.
Anything else, council? I would like just to mention, and I think it was kind of inadvertently mentioned earlier, but I would like to just say that we're all thinking about Mr. Anderson, and we're certainly praying for him, and that's what he's asked for, prayers, and we're doing that as much as we can, and we hope to see him back at council meetings soon, if at all possible. so keep them in your prayers. We do have the opportunity for a closed session, council, but are we gonna go into closed session? Does anybody have the desire to do so?
I think we can appoint.
Just want to stay in open session? Okay. So there'll be no closed session. That brings us to appointments to boards and committees. There's a few things I think we're going to table and advertise a little longer to hopefully have more people apply for. But we do have a couple of appointments I think we're going to entertain tonight. The first of which is the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee, an appointment to fill the vacancy of Martha Keys, who is ineligible to serve an additional term. Council, do we have an appointment we'd like to make, or I'd open the floor for?
I'd like to nominate to appoint Donna Marie Emmert to the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Owens to appoint Donna Marie Emmerich to fill the vacancy of Martha Keys for the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Pillion. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. For the Board of Zoning Appeals, if I'm not mistaken, we did not have anybody apply, so we're going to table that one for now. Cam, do we need to take any action or just stay at the table and we're good to go?
Do you have other ones that you're gonna table?
Yes.
Why don't you just do them together?
Okay, all right, so we'll do that in just a moment then. So for the Tourism Advisory Committee, we did have one application, I believe, for the
I think it was the hotel motel.
Hotel motel, appointment to fill the vacancy representative for the hotel motel. So I would entertain appointments for that position.
I want to make a motion to nominate Jamie Arnold to the Tourism Advisory
All right,
Committee.
motion by Mr. Owens to appoint Jamie Arnold to fill the vacancy for the representative for a hotel motel for the Tourism Advisory Committee. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Vice Mayor Quetch. Any discussion, council? Hearing none, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. And that leaves us with the rest of the Tourism Advisory Committee, the appointment for vacancy for a B&B establishment, as well as a retail downtown business owner. Didn't have anybody apply for those that I know of. And then the Abingdon's Art Commission, all of those appointments I think we're going to table as well. So how do you want us to wrap that up, Cam?
Just make a motion to table all those.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion to table all of those that I mentioned to advertise a little bit longer.
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Vice Mayor Quetch to do so. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
A second by Ms. Pillion. Any discussion, council?
Kim, did you get each of those?
Was I going too fast?
No, we're good.
Got it? Fast rider, appreciate it.
She's good.
That's it. Yeah, hearing no discussion, Kim, if you'll please call the roll.
Mr. Owens?
Aye.
Ms. Pillion? Aye. Ms. Quetch?
Aye.
And Mayor Webb?
Aye. Well, unless I've forgotten something, I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. So we are formally adjourned.